At Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, it is our mission to be stewards of our natural resources. Sustainability doesn't just benefit our current generation, but it lays the groundwork for many future generations to come. Using our natural resources responsibly is a top priority, and it starts well before the lumber reaches us. Timber is one of the most renewable natural resources, and when harvested correctly, will leave room for healthy new growth. At Baird Brothers, we effort to partner with responsible logging and sawmill companies that harvest in a sustainable way through methods like select cutting. These methods ensure that forests are maintained and will regenerate for generations to come. Once the timber reaches us at Baird Brothers, we take every step to ensure sustainability. We use nearly every inch of the harvested lumber and are constantly looking for ways to reduce waste. In receiving this natural resource, we take responsibility for it. We have to take care of it through the whole process, through the sticking process, through the drying process, into manufacturing, and then our finished products. We are able to use cutoffs for products like our finger-jointed molding line and workbench tops. We are proud to generate our electricity at Baird Brothers going back to 1981. Materials that would otherwise be thrown out are ground into sawdust, and we use that to generate heat for our dry kilns and our buildings. Even the heat produced by our off-the-grid electrical generators is reused to power our kilns. At Baird Brothers, we strive to have a small environmental footprint. Our founders implemented green business practices almost 40 years ago, and we are proud to continue that legacy and make sure the future is bright for the next generations. To learn more, go to bairdbrothers.com.
So the property we're on today is primarily a farm. The timber on it is extremely large. It's been growing for a long time. We select the trees that are damaged already, trees that are showing signs of rot. The timber we're cutting today is going to be used for a lot of things. We've got grade timber here that's going to go through the sawmill and be used for furniture. It'll be used for flooring. It'll be used for moldings. You'll get some good grade lumber off the outer jacket, the outside edges of the timber, and you'll also end up in the middle, you'll end up with a railroad tie. So for sustainability, the big thing we have to remember is it something we can continue to do forever? And by choosing to do things the right way, we can do that. Timber is one of our most renewable natural resources. We've got the ability to harvest timber today. As long as we do it the right way, we're selecting the right trees, selling them at the right time, and also have young trees always growing for the future so that my grandchildren and their grandchildren are also able to use those resources to meet the needs of everyday living.
Brought to you direct from Studio 3B at Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, the American Hardwood Advisor is your source for trends, tips, and insights into how the building industry has evolved. Join me, Steve Stack, along with guest builders and industry leaders as we talk shop and go in depth on what it takes to be the best of the best. Dive into topics like architecture, industry trends, project plans, historical tools, tricks of the trade, and life's lessons from more than 6 decades of experience in the hardwood lumber business. Hey, welcome back everybody. Studio 3B, Baird Brothers Fine Hardwood, Steve Stack, Director of Business Development, back here today, and we're gonna have a great conversation with some partners from over in Western Pennsylvania that came to visit us today. Miss Amy Shields with the Allegheny Hardwoods Utilization Group, and one of our partners, business-wise, friends, family friends, Jessica Hickman Fresch from Hickman Lumber over in Emmleton. And guys, thanks for coming over today.
Yeah, we're glad to be here.
Like I told you, walking back to the studio here, we're gonna have fun. We're gonna have conversation, and we felt it was important to bring you folks in with your background and your expertise And we're going to talk about, and I'm not sure which word I want to use, whether it's sustainability or a natural renewable resource. I think they cross paths. Yeah. And so we're going to talk about that today, and anything from the purpose of a forest, the benefits of a forest, whether it's being harvested or whether it's a standing forest that's been untouched, and why proper forest management is important. I know, Jess, your grandfather, great-grandfather, you know, he was a little bit ahead of his time, and he recognized that a forest needed taken care of. And you have some forestry land that you guys manage. So we'll touch on that. And Amy, with all of your affiliations within the hardwood forestry industry, we're gonna tap into your thought process and you know, have some of that. And so for folks that don't understand, maybe, Amy, what does the sustainability reference?
Oh, wow, you're jumping right into the big stuff, huh? Okay, so sustainability actually means different things to different people, and it's from an industry perspective. If you ask folks inside the industry about sustainability, they'll, you know, it's sort of common knowledge. It means that we do a good job in stewarding the forests, right? We're taking care of how we harvest, why we harvest, when we harvest, the manner in which we do it. All with the idea that we're looking to ensure that there's a good hardwood forest here for future generations. So that's what sustainability means to most of the folks within the industry, right? Jess, jump in.
Yeah.
And one of the issues that we face, though, is sustainability means something different at times to the general public. One of the things that we often encounter is that to some folks in the general public, sustainability means I'm choosing a product because it didn't come from a harvested tree. And their idea of sustainability means I promoted not you know, harvesting or using anything from the woods, but from another line of product. And then there are folks in the general public who understand that sustainability means what we assume and know that it means within the industry, which is, you know, good, careful management of our forests.
And that just made me think of a little conversation that we had prior to sitting down today and starting this conversation. The conversation we had, and Jess, you had a fantastic analogy, and it was comparing the lifespan of a tree, its purposes, the service it provides. And you had a couple examples, but the analogy, you took it to a field of corn or a garden.
Yeah.
Go into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, within the industry, that's kind of, it's a crop, right? I mean, even forestry is in the Department of Agriculture at the state, because it is a crop, and it is just a long-term crop where, you know, a garden, if you're growing tomatoes, you're growing corn, you harvest it each year. You know, with a forest, you might harvest it, you know, you might go in every 10 years to pick out the weeds. You know, that's how often you pick out the weeds, and then you pick out your mature trees to harvest and that ready to serve an extra purpose that, you know, the wood product then is going to last another 100 years. It's going to outlast, you know, a lot of lifespans. Trees die on their own, you know, so if we use it, pick at that tree while it's ripe and it's mature, and we can utilize that wood just like you'd utilize a piece of fruit or a vegetable from a garden, you know, and you know, unless if we have people, we need to live with the environment and work with it. So that's kind of, you know, trees are renewable, and they're growing back, and we're growing. Pennsylvania, I think we're growing at least 3 times as many trees as we harvest.
Yeah, I think double is our
double.
Yeah, our estimate.
So
say that one more time.
Well, the official line is that we are growing back double the amount of trees that we're harvesting on an annual basis. And that is true. I mean, we do have some forest conditions that are maybe causing certain trees or certain varieties of trees to grow back a little more prolifically. So I don't think you'll get consensus that even though we're growing back twice as much as we're harvesting, that what we're growing back is exactly what we want. We have some work to do there, but yeah, we're definitely harvesting less than we're growing, and we do have sustainable forestry
practices.
practices.
And there was a UN report that Jonathan Geyer, he references a lot. He works for the Pennsylvania Hardwood Development Council. And it's the biggest threat to Pennsylvania's forest is actually underutilization. So these trees are dying because we've got a lot of mature forest, right? And so the trees are dying at a faster rate than we're harvesting them. So when the cool thing about the forest and one of the reasons that we need forests is, right, trees are taking in carbon dioxide and they give us oxygen, right? We need forests for that. So we can take in more carbon and then the trees are storing that carbon, right? Well, when you cut down that tree, that carbon is stored. So that carbon's stored in this wall, it's stored in this bench, it's stored in the doors you make, right? So it's stored. If that tree dies and we don't utilize that wood, that carbon's released back in the atmosphere. So it's, I mean, that's the natural process of it, but right now the big thing is how can we reduce the carbon in the atmosphere? So by using wood products, we're keeping that carbon stored in a product that's gonna last 100+ years.
Right.
And the smaller, younger trees are absorbing carbon at a faster rate. So when you cut down a tree, you're growing more trees that are actually taking it in at a faster rate. So you're still storing that carbon and you're taking it in quicker by growing younger trees. So by using wood, it's actually a carbon negative product.
Right.
Compared to an alternative, you don't use wood, you have to use something, you're going to use a plastic product.
Right.
So, and that's terrible for the environment.
Okay, so and you guys referenced the usage versus what is actively growing, and I've seen it, whether it was in print or somebody mentioned it. The total acres of forestry in Pennsylvania, for example, today versus 150 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, we have just under 17 million acres of forested land in Pennsylvania.
And Pennsylvania was totally clear cut. I mean, that was before there was a sustainability factor. I mean, it was clear cut after the Civil War. And when William Penn, which Pennsylvania is named after, Penn's Woods, if you know that. Yeah. It wasn't as much of a hardwood forest. It was more white pine and hemlocks, and they clear cut that, and hardwoods is what predominantly grew back. We kind of got lucky as a country that we had really great hardwoods growing back, and that was just the side effect of it. And we don't manage like that anymore. I mean, that was, back in the day, they just kept moving west, cut all trees in Pennsylvania, we'll go to Ohio.
Right. We went through a chemical wood era, that even took out the remaining trees beyond that. So, yeah, I mean, with 17 million acres of forest land in Pennsylvania and the fact that it's growing back, twice as much as we're harvesting, although we know there's some nuance to that, we definitely have a sustainable model in Pennsylvania. Everything can improve, every process can improve. Going back to Jess's comment about, our Pennsylvania was the Black Forest when settlers first arrived here. And it was actually 90% softwood forest. It was hemlock and spruce and pine, and and harvesting all of that material to build the country, really for ship masts in the beginning, and then to fuel the building of the country. Then we moved into the era of the tanneries. People don't realize that fueled the Industrial Revolution, because back then, all of our equipment was belt driven.
Right.
Where did all that come from? They were leather belts that fueled all of that. So the tanning era was a huge deal. So all of that work led to our forests being basically clear cut and stripped bare. And you can see some pictures of that, the results of that. you will see those quite a bit. But the last 100 years has been all about conservation and about changing the way that forestry is practiced here in Pennsylvania.
And I'm sitting here listening and I'm thinking, our forefathers in this country were some pretty intelligent people in creating some of our national forest areas and so forth, and like Pennsylvania, across this country. But now in the past 100, 120 years, whatever, it's become a concerted effort throughout the industry to manage the forest lands, a natural resource, a renewable natural resource. So you took me up to the Black Forest and the hemlocks and the firs and the spruce. What hardwood species does Pennsylvania produce today?
So we have, I think, 15 different hardwood species growing in Pennsylvania. There are about 10 that are the predominant species. Cherry, well, actually, alphabetical order, right? Ash, beech, birch, cherry, hard maple, hickory, soft maple, red oak, white oak, and walnut. I think that's pretty much our list of our predominant species. Soft maple is actually the highest percentage of our hardwood forests in Pennsylvania. I think it's about 15% of our hardwood forests. We're known in the region, especially where Jess and I are from, for cherry, black cherry. Our region used to be called, and is still referred to as, the black cherry capital of the world. We produce about 30% of the black cherry that's harvested in the United States, but we are number one in quality. For a variety of factors, which has a lot to do with our
and
demographic.
With cherry, as other hardwood species, but cherry has some of the most beautiful natural Mother Nature given characteristics of a lot of the hardwoods.
It does.
The natural colorization, the subtleness of the grain, things like that, and it's funny how different regions of the country are recognized for a certain species. You know, like the hickories. We go down south a little bit, and we get into the hickories. We go out west. You know, you get some of the premier white oak.
Yeah. In Pennsylvania's white oak's good too.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have a lot of subspecies of white oak. It's mostly the Quercus alba, with the white oak in our area. You know, and red oak is nice too. The tighter growth rings, and northern red oak. You know, we've got some pretty oaks in our country too.
You know, and then we talk about sustainability and what other. I know, Amy, you have a list of affiliations that to be congratulated on. As far as education, we can talk about educating the landowners. We can talk about educating the general public. We can talk about educating children, the next generations. Right? What type of programs and things along that line are you involved in?
We do. So the Allegheny Hardwood Utilization Group is one of 3 hardwood utilization groups, or HUGs. We're known as HUGs in the state of Pennsylvania. We're affiliated with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. So in Pennsylvania, the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources is really mandated to care for the trees, the forests themselves, but the commodity of hardwood falls under the Department of Agriculture. So I work through the Department of Ag and private industry in specifically in northwestern and north central Pennsylvania. One of the biggest programs that we work in conjunction with is something called the Pennsylvania Woodmobile. So it's a traveling exhibit that is funded through the Department of Agriculture and private industry. There are contributions of wood, product, and material within that van from about 30 different companies in Pennsylvania. And we travel the state with that. It's got everything inside, from the history of Pennsylvania's forests to some really great demonstrations about some still shots of property that had been harvested, and photographs have been taken from the exact same spot over a series of 50 or 60 years. So you can actually see my property was cut, but you can see how your hardwood trees will grow back in a carefully managed forest. We've got a lot of information in there about invasive species and pests that are after our trees in PA. And then you come down the other side of the wall, and it's all about the industry, who works in the forest products industry in Pennsylvania, the products we produce, where to get in touch with a consulting forester, a logger. We've got a beautiful Martin guitar in the Woodmobile that's made from trees that were harvested from Hurricane Sandy. So it's a really amazing educational exhibit. And in conjunction with that, in our region specifically, we'll bring the Woodmobile in, and then we'll do a program called Project Learning Tree, which is also a national hardwood associated, not so much a curriculum, but a series of activities that you can do with students of all ages, actually from preschool to high school age. And we'll do those quite often with school groups and civic groups that ask us to come in and do presentations on everything from how trees grow, how people are involved in that management process, to really just the function of a tree and the process it takes as it grows. We talk a lot about assumptions and people's feelings and thoughts on forests and the benefits of them. So we really just cover a wide variety of topics with people and really just try to bring awareness to the fact that the forest products industry is very active and concerned about promoting forests, forest health, forests for future generations, and why the products we produce are a key component to how those forests are managed.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Amy touched on the Woodmobile, and I've had the opportunity on a few different occasions to visit this. It's a great educational tool, and it's a fun educational tool, the way it's presented. Where can they get a glimpse of it? Can they see that on your website, Amy?
Yeah, actually you can go to the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture and just type into the search bar Woodmobile, and it's got its own page. It's a well-loved entity. It's got its own page there, and actually you can see the schedule is posted to the public, so that you can see where it's gonna be. They take it, I don't even know, I think 300 or 400 events in the span of a year. A lot of fairs, a lot of festivals, and a lot of schools. So
I'll tell you what we're going to do, Amy. Before you get out of here today, we're going to discuss a couple dates, and we would love to have the Woodmobile over to a little fall festival that we have here at Baird Brothers. So we're going to talk about that.
Okay, that'd be great.
We're going to talk about that. You, Jess, fourth generation, right? You were brought up on sawdust.
Yeah, but I never thought I couldn't wait to get out of Western Pennsylvania. Growing up, it's just, I was small town looking back. I was like, yeah, it was a good place to be raised. But yeah, I wanted to get to the big city. I studied international business and Spanish. I never thought I was going to be working in the wood industry. But, life brought me back around to it. And I, told my dad I'd give him a couple of years and help out. And that was 10 years ago. But, that's just something like being in the industry. I mean, it's something that it's easy for me to work with because it's my family business, which has a lot of with that too. But then also I'm not never feel like a used car salesman. You know what I mean? Like, we're making a good product. We've got something I believe in. It's good for the environment. It's good. It's a good product for people's homes. It's, I'm confident in selling it, and then the industry is full of a lot of good people, from the contractors to I'd worked with a lot of architects and designers, and then other people in the wood industry. It's just a really good industry to be part of. And so I got sucked in. I think I'm in it.
It was a good place to land.
It was, yeah.
It's a good place to land.
I'm very fortunate that, I've had the opportunity, but it's like, it's with having my own family in general. But I mean, it's a lot of people. We've got a new salesman working for us that has no wood industry, but he wanted to stick in the area, and he's a smart kid, went to 2-year business school and started selling for us, and he's awesome, and it's great, and it's I can see he's made friends with contractors. He's traveled. He's got to go to New Orleans to visit, and he gets to do all kinds of cool stuff, and it's just a good industry to be in.
Very much so. And tying Hickman lumber and Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods back to the sustainability, a lot of it comes down to, at the end of the day, we want to leave the smallest footprint, right? And I know you practice it in your logging operations, in your sawmill operations, and some of the manufacturing, as do we, where I'm gonna throw out a term, off rips, right? And folks at home, when you have a wood plank and you're trying to create two parallel lines down the length of the board, and you have that little off rip, it's called. We use that.
Oh yeah, there's nothing goes to waste.
Right? We try and use every square inch of that board, of that log.
From the tree, from the time that it's in the forest, when the tree's harvested, and we leave the tops of the trees down, because that actually protects the saplings. So we've done studies where we've done little small fences compared to a treetop that's left. And deer love to eat oak trees, especially. That's what we try to grow a lot, is the oak trees, right? Deer love them. So we hunt, most importantly. Get rid of the deer, but keep the treetops down, and that helps protect the saplings when they're growing. So that's why those are left. In the sawmill, then the bark, when it's debarked, that's sold to landscapers, so they utilize that. The green sawdust from the sawmill, that goes to power the dry kilns. The chips, those go to make, there's paper factories being made with that. And then every part of the trees used, and then, in the secondary manufacturing, you guys are using, the scraps, but it makes pellets out of the sawdust for wood burners. And it's too expensive and it's too valuable of a product to waste anything.
Well, that's it. It is a very valuable natural resource, and we literally can use everything from that tree.
Yep.
To 100% utilization, right? And in your business, as in Baird's business, power generation, we use it as a fuel source also to heat our facility, our dry kilns. There's nothing goes to waste. And not a lot of natural resources are used.
That's right.
To that level.
To that extent, right.
And you touched on something with a little smirk, and the deer, and we hunt the deer.
Well, if you care about the trees, then you got to save the trees by, fighting what's eating them, right? And then we obviously eat the deer anyways.
But there we go. There we go. Talking about all the critters that survive in the forest.
Right. Yep. And that uneven aged managed forest too, and that's something that the sustainability factor, you're doing that selective harvesting, you're trying to create that uneven age management, and there's all kinds of, the birds and the mammals, and,
That's one of those things when I was mentioning, Pennsylvania has some work to do because our forests were cut kind of all at the same time. We did end up sort of then with all the trees were the same age, and so they get to a certain age and then folks start cutting them again, and so we do have an issue with even aged forest management in Pennsylvania, but that tide is turning, and that's one of the continued efforts under sustainability that our industry is really working on, is creating that next that better mix of young, middle-aged, and old forests, because it's good for the forest health, it's good for the carbon and climate conversation, and it's good for the industry. We want to make sure that we've got a continuous supply of raw material.
And to your comment, Amy, and to yours, Jess, and I'm just sitting here thinking, forest management, wildlife management.
They go hand in hand.
Right? They work together.
Yep. And with that too, so in Pennsylvania, I think it's like at least 70% of the forest is privately owned, right? Is that around that number?
700,000.
And so with that, I try to explain to people as well, and a lot of that now is being passed down. It's like, my grandfather bought this property, right? Bought these woods, and now it's split up between half a dozen or more grandkids. What are we going to do with this property? Do we sell it? Do we keep it as forest? We are paying taxes on it. It costs money to keep it as a forest. So how are they able to afford to keep it as forest? Because you get a developer that comes in, or somebody wants to do something. How can we keep that, that owns, maybe 20 acres, 50 acres? It's not a big property, but, we need, it's all mixed up with families. So by getting them to manage their forest and getting them to add value to it, where you go in every 10 years, you take a few trees out, and you give them a check that helps pay for their taxes over the next 10 years, they can keep that land as forest, as opposed to like, we need some money, let's just sell it to, this housing development, and then it's clear cut, and the forest is gone, and, there's a paved parking lot over it, and like nothing's going to grow back on a concrete, right? But if it gets cut and managed, it's keeping to grow back, it's keeping the animal, wildlife, and so that's where, giving value to that tree by having consumers using more wood products, it's actually keeping more forest as forest.
There are a lot of programs emerging too that are helping. One of the terms that you'll hear a lot is high grading, and that's when someone goes into a forested area and they just say, we're going to take out everything 14 inches and larger in DBH. That's not a process that promotes a good forest going forward, but it is, as Jess said, it's expensive to keep forest land in forest land, right? So people can be motivated by the economics of it. But having that conversation with a consulting forester or a trained forester really leads the landowner to have a better conversation about all of the benefits of owning forest land. And there are programs developing that are going to assist private landowners in doing a little bit better job of managing those forests, doing the pruning, going in, controlling the vegetation and the invasive species, and taking out a few trees to thin the crop, as we will, here and there along the journey to when there might be a better, more economically beneficial timber harvest at some point, but doing that work in the ground to create that uneven aged forest, even on that private forest landowner's piece, is something that we're working towards in Pennsylvania, and a lot of programs are emerging to help forest landowners do that work.
I'm listening to you, Amy, and the practices and principles of forestry, and I'm sitting here thinking, and you alluded to it earlier, Jess. You have a forest, a managed forest, and I love the word harvest. We're in the middle of a corn or soybean field here, depending on what what year it is, right, on the crop rotation. And harvesting, we identify with that. It's done in a proper way. That tree gives us its lifespan, providing for wildlife. And then the beauty of this natural resource, there comes a time, not that we don't enjoy it when we're out for a hike going through the woods, but even when it is harvested, it still serves us. And Jess, you mentioned the beauty of the woodwork, the beauty of the hardwood floor. Touching on the hardwood floors, what kind of benefits does that bring into a home?
Well, and that's something that's kind of the newer study that I think is really cool. I've been interested a lot. It's called biophilic design. And that's the idea of bringing natural products into your home. And it's actually, they're doing studies that it's helping, in hospitals and things, they're seeing people heal faster. And kids in school that have more wood and natural products, they pay attention and can focus longer, and they're more creative. And so there's actually these health benefits.
Reduces stress
levels. Yeah. So there are actually these, so there's, I don't know, maybe it's not common knowledge now, but like you can go out in the wood and walk in the woods and you feel better. Like in Japan, they actually prescribe people that are stressed and everything to go and do a forest bathing, and that's just going to spend times in the woods. It's like their doctor's like, hey, like you need to take a step back and walk in the woods. And so some of those same benefits that they're getting from being out in the woods, they're starting to see when you're using these wood products in your home actually helps with your health as well. And so it's, it's more than, and if you're at a trade show, and I'm sure you know this, when there's a piece of wood there, people come up and touch it, they feel connected to it. They're like, wow, this is a real wood. People just feel connected to it. And that's just this natural thing. And now there's these kind of more hard studies that are going into it, telling us why we get this connected to it, and actually these benefits.
In speaking to people at the trade shows and so forth that you mentioned, in relationship to hardwood flooring or a nickel gap siding like behind us here, I tell folks it's still a living piece of wood. It's porous. It reacts to what it is exposed to. But managed properly, there's that word managed again, from forestry to on our walls or on our floors, managed properly, it just keeps giving back.
That's right.
You and I, it's our livelihoods, wood products. And one of the easiest sells to people with our wood flooring products that Hickman lumber jumps into and Baird jumps into at different niche areas, there's nothing like the warmth and the feel of a true 3/4 inch hardwood floor.
Right.
Yep.
And How long does it last?
I mean, there's castles in Europe that are hundreds of years,
Right?
with wood floors. I mean, easily 100 years, for a solid wood floor, if not longer. Furniture, antique furniture, I mean, it lasts, and it's
One of the things that one of the groups that our organization is involved in is a national effort called the Real American Hardwood Coalition that is working to bring a national effort of consumer awareness around the benefits of choosing wood products, solid wood products for your home, how people make that journey as they plan and design a project, why they make the decisions they make at the end of that journey on whether to choose a solid product or whether to choose an alternative. But really the overall goal of it is to promote the benefits of using solid hardwood products. We did quite a bit of research back in 2020 with almost 2,000 consumers, asking them about this, how they imagine their projects, where do they get their inspiration for their projects, how do they, pick out the design elements that they're interested in, and overwhelmingly, they were drawn to the beauty of wood. That was already a given. They were drawn to what it looks like, what it feels like, the warmth that it exudes. There's really, it came back almost unanimously as the gold standard. Then we moved into how do you make your final decision on what you're actually going to purchase? Well, there's where we kind of have a departure because the hardwood industry has not really kept up with some of our alternative substitute products in promoting that we're very durable, as you talked about before. It might be porous, but there are still, ways that you can make your hardwood product very durable. It is the best value for the dollar because it can be sanded and painted and resanded, and you can find a way to repurpose that and extend the longevity of your product. So the value, the durability, that home health connection was key. People were really drawn to how does choosing this product actually benefit me specifically? How does it make a safer and healthier environment for my family? And so a lot of our alternative products have resins and give off gases and things that really aren't very safe for your family to be around, where wood products don't generally have that. And then the last piece was that connection to sustainability, which we found was not a big economic driver for people. They were interested in sustainability and what their concept of sustainability was, but they weren't really willing to pay extra for that sustainability. But if you change that message to really connect folks to their home health, and really now we have an opportunity with the climate and carbon connection, sustainability is going to take on a better message that will resonate with people.
I think we're seeing it in this country. There's a lot of great manufacturing companies in the United States, whether it be in the lumber industry or any of a dozen other industries where there's manufacturing involved. And people have to appreciate the practices that Hickman lumber implements, the practices that some of the loggers and foresters in Western Pennsylvania implement, and those same practices that once, and I say when we receive a load of lumber, we accept that load of lumber and the responsibilities that go along with it. And that's how you have to approach it. And if we can get enough cheerleaders, Amy, right?
Yeah.
And we never advertise that we're the cheapest guy on the block.
Right.
A quality product from a quality, renewable, natural resource. And I always go back to the word value. And so, get the pom-poms out.
Yeah.
Let's keep.
Yeah, this effort is really gaining momentum. There are every hardwood producing state in the country is on board with this effort. We've got I think 26 or 28 hardwood associations, everything from a regional in-state association like mine, all the way up to the biggest players in the game like NHLA and AHMI, Hardwood Manufacturers Association. Everyone who's anyone in the hardwood industry is getting on board with this effort right now, and I really think it's going to pick up steam
Like the
and
Got Milk
momentum.
campaign, you know? That's
Yep.
what we're doing.
Yeah, we just hired. So going back to those principles, that research showed folks were already on board with the beauty of solid hardwood products, but they need a little convincing when it comes to the durability, the value for the dollar, the sustainability, and the home health connection. And we've found that in their inspiration, they're looking at social media, the Pinterest and Houzz and HGTVs and this little house of the world to get their inspiration. And so we're going to meet them there with a social media campaign that drives folks to a .com site. Well, they'll learn all about the benefits of using hardwoods, and we've hired a company called Canvas United, who is behind the Got Milk campaign. So these are world-class professionals who are really going to make big things happen in our industry, and it's going to really be a great program.
And here we are, and this is one of the reasons Studio 3B was constructed.
Yep.
Education.
Yep.
Education, and I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't throw in common sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, generations ahead of us, they knew that you didn't go in and cut that entire forest down. You went in and, for lack of a better term, you cherry picked it, right? Yeah, and so it's common sense through management, through education, and because the three of us survive in this industry with this natural resource, it's the beauty of the product.
And I think old timers realize that the longevity and the value with that, especially, it's just like, okay, I'm going to build a house and I'm going to build it to last, where, so many houses are being built now with, how can we build a house that lasts 5 years and everything's replaced in 5 years? It's just kind of absurd, this like mentality that we have, and a lot of the disposable.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll buy some chairs and then we'll just put them to the curb in 3 years. It's like, no, let's buy something that lasts and you can pass down, buy used, buy real wood products that last, and then you don't need as much, like.
I go back to the furniture industry.
Yeah.
And there's still some nice quality new furniture out there, but if I want a good quality built piece of furniture, I'm going to the antique store.
Yeah. Or to the craftsman and having something made custom that you're looking for.
Right. And to the old timers, to the old craftsmen.
Yeah.
They were wise. You and I live on it, whether it's white oak, red oak, quartered rift, right?
Yep.
A lot of those old furniture pieces, they were quartered and rift, whether it be white or red oak. Why? Because they identified the stability of the product, the longevity of it, the durability of it, and they put their blood, sweat, and tears into that project.
Yep.
And they knew it was staying together.
Well, and the nice thing about a wood product is too, especially like a wood floor or even furniture, you can paint it, you can change the look of it, right? Because like styles change and everybody, and that's, okay, fashions change, things change, but you can have a real wood something and change the look of it 100% without throwing away a product and getting a totally new product, right? So that's the kind of the other beauty of wood, is that it's versatile and it's timeless. I mean, like, this wall is never going to go out of style. Like it's beautiful, right? It's
and to your point, we did a splash of paint with a natural wood product beside it, and they complement one another.
Right, they do.
Yeah.
And if styles change, you can paint this a different color. You can sand it down.
Tweak the
you
color,
can
right?
Just put a clear stain. Yep.
Exactly. So, ladies, thank you so much for stopping over today.
Yeah.
I hope you had fun.
Yeah, we did. Thank you.
I told you it'd be easy. So
we don't really have much problem talking, I guess, do we?
We're good at talking.
Ladies and gentlemen, Amy Shields with the Allegheny Hardwood Utilization Group, and Jessica Hickman Fresch with Hickman Lumber, partners of Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Follow along with them, follow our socials, and we're going to have some more conversation with you guys coming down the road, okay?
All right. Okay.
So Stay tuned, folks. More to come. Thanks for stopping by Studio 3B. See you soon. For all you folks listening, thanks for talking shop with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to stay up to date with the American Hardwood Advisor Series, give us a like and subscribe. For more tips, projects, and inspiration, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or at bairdbrothers.com. Until next time. Brought to you direct from Studio 3B at Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, the American Hardwood Advisor is your source for trends, tips, and insights into how the building industry has evolved. Join me, Steve Stack, along with guest builders and industry leaders as we talk shop and go in depth on what it takes to be the best of the best. Dive into topics like architecture, industry trends, project plans, historical tools, tricks of the trade, and life's lessons from more than 6 decades of experience in the hardwood lumber business. Hey folks, Steve Stack coming to you from Baird Brothers Fine Hardwood, Studio 3B out here in Canfield, Ohio. I have a guest today. Don't want to refer to her as a guest, she's a friend. Miss Jessica Hickman Fresch from Emmleton, Pennsylvania, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And the family group of Hickman Lumber. Welcome, Jess.
Thanks.
You know, we cross paths on occasion. Home and garden shows or passing through Emmleton, I'll pop in, and you're not at the office because you're down in Pittsburgh doing your thing for the company. But over the years, Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, Hickman Lumber, they've developed a nice relationship, a business relationship, a friendship. Your father, Denny, and our Terry Baird, they're buddies, and it's funny how the companies parallel one another in that the thing that jumps out most, your 4th generation, and Baird's, we're coming into our 3rd generation.
Yep.
And the storylines kind of follow. If you would, take me through the storyline of the Hickman family.
Yeah, so my great-grandfather, Harry Hickman Jr., he moved up from Pittsburgh area is actually where he was born, and he moved up to Kennerdale area, Emmleton, when he was like a teenager and started working for a logger, and this was like right around like the Depression era then, and so he started the sawmill with a team of horses, and met my great-grandmother, and you know, they were secretly married in West Virginia, then like lived in the woods where they have a whole cool story. My great-grandmother died a couple years ago, but she told me some of the stories of them living in the woods, you know. I mean, it was Depression era, so they were just cutting railroad ties and, you know, mine beams, and they had, you know, a little sawmill portable that they set up, and the horses cut it down and sawed it and did their thing. And then I think it was like 38 is when Hickman Lumber kind of officially got set up and like a permanent location where we are now in the Emmleton, just up the hill in Emmleton, between Emmleton and Clintonville in western Pennsylvania. And so he ran that. And then my grandfather, Pop Larry, who's in his mid-80s now, but still pretty active, officially retired, you know, but active just like, you know, Paul here all the time, right? And so Pop Larry, he went to lumber grading school, and he kind of went and worked for other sawmills for a while, you know, and then realized, you know, the other sawmills were making money and he could do it. Because I don't think Poppy Hickman was that great of a business guy. Like, he did it and he went, but like my grandfather, Pop Larry, was really the one that like started buying property and really grew Hickman Lumber into more of a successful kind of business. So he came back, partnered with his dad, and started growing Hickman Lumber. And then, you know, my dad, Denny, you know, really all he ever did was work at the sawmill growing up. And I think he thought for a little while that he was going to play professional baseball, and, you know, realized he wasn't that good. So he, you know, did the lumber grading school, and actually he applied for a job in Hawaii to work for a sawmill in Hawaii when he got done with lumber grading school. and went through all the paperwork, and then they rejected him because they said, oh, well, you have a family business, so you'll probably end up going back for the family business. And so he kind of got thrown into that as well. But then, Dad's really grown it with the dry kilns. He was the one that brought in the dry kilns and added that part to it. And then in 2000, he started the Allegheny Mountain Hardwood flooring, and that was the flooring side of stuff. And I was still in high school at the time when that got started, and I was never thinking I was going to work, with I couldn't wait to get out of Western Pennsylvania. And in the sawmill industry, it was a total guy industry, and so it was never anything on my radar that I was going to work for the family business. And so I went to school. I studied international business and Spanish, and did my own thing. Had a couple different jobs for, a few years, and then kind of worked my way back. And Dad asked me, it was right after the housing recession in 2011, he asked me if I'd come back and help out. So I kind of officially joined in 2012, and I said, I'll give you 3 years to get the website up to date and kind of, help modernize things a little bit. And that's been, 10 years ago now that they got me sucked back in. And so that's kind of where we are now. We've got the flooring side of stuff that I run. My brother Jake manages the sawmill. And so we don't have as many siblings, and stuff with ours. My dad, he was the only son, and he had 2 sisters that didn't get into the industry. And my brother's the only other one. There's 4 of us kids in our family. My brother Jake runs the sawmill, and I'm on the flooring side. And then my 2 sisters aren't involved with it at all.
Right, and you just gave me something that I didn't know about your father, Denny. He had his mind set he was going to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So that explains to me how you, when you went to college, you went all over the world.
Yeah. Well, I studied international business, so that was, in Spanish. Well, I was with a Rotary Club. I did an exchange program between high school and college. So I did a kind of a gap year where I lived with a host family in Costa Rica, which was an awesome experience. And that was like a big thing that made me appreciate Western Pennsylvania and America even more too. It was love being abroad, but like you appreciate like the little things that you didn't appreciate until you leave and you come back. And
you don't have it.
Yeah, and you don't have it. Can't flush toilet paper.
Right.
Little things. But yeah, it's I think it's good. I think it helped. My dad, we never pushed us to be part of, or that was like our life, like, hey, we're a family business. This is what you're going to do when you grow up, and I think it's better to get out and get experience elsewhere.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. We've seen the same scenario play out here at Baird's, and we have some individuals, second generation, when Lori went into the nursing field, and she worked the open heart floor up at Cleveland Clinic.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was a matter of time, and she landed back at the family business. And more recently, third generation, Zach Baird. He was with a major tire manufacturer in the United States, well, worldwide, but he was United States, and a couple years of that, and he said, you know what, time to go home. And Sarah Baird, she was in the meat packing inspection business for the states, and she did a few years of that, and then she's back. And the great thing about it, and your experiences also, you came back to the family business a richer person.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I had added more to it, than if that's all I knew. I was able to, it's just, Baird's, I know they're innovative too and stuff, but it's people get stuck in their ways, and this is how you've always been doing things. And, it's tough sometimes to get that new ideas, but you need some outside. If you, just go into it, oh, this is what we've done, this is always what we've always done, and we're going to keep doing it like this. And they were, still sending faxes from the sawmill to the office when I started.
No, and I've experienced that. You just read some of my timeline in that back in the day when we had the sawmill operation here, it was sawmill operation and pallet building. And, and then it evolved into the molding and the dry kilns, and then second generation came in with some new ideas and some new thoughts, and they had to sell it to the first generation. And all of a sudden there's a BairdBrothers.com website, and same with your family and the Hickman group, and now that's evolved, and we're places where we never thought that we may be. I know with you, you've been very successful in your, and I'll call it a niche flooring market, because you manufacture a very high-end flooring product, kind of a specialty flooring product. You've done a fantastic job of networking with architects, designers.
And working on that education, and that's something that we do, is that education with the architects, designers, with specs, and homeowners especially. I mean, ultimately the homeowners can make the decision, right? So you have to get the homeowner to understand why there's that added value. White oak from Pennsylvania looks different than white oak from Kentucky. It's just like drinking bourbon, right? There's a top shelf and there's a bottom shelf. Does the same job at the end of the day if you drink a bottle. But there's a reason people spend more on top shelf stuff, right?
Your father's daughter.
You have experience with that.
No, and it's so true though.
There's differences, and if you don't understand the difference, then you don't,
Yeah, and you mentioned your brother Jake. When did he come in?
So he went to did some construction. He went to Penn State. And then after school, he got into construction and lived on the road for probably 3 or 4 years doing road work, construction and stuff. And before he came back, he worked at the sawmill more through high school and college in the summers. But, so Dad was like, you got to go do something else. They can't just come straight into it just because you're the boss's kid. You have to add some value to the company. So that's what he did for a few years.
And again, I think that's huge. Just like you used the analogy of Costa Rica and Western Pennsylvania, go away for a little bit and see how nice it is at home.
Right.
And the same thing with kids in a family business. Go out, see the world. Take your hard knocks. And when you're ready, come back and contribute to this family business.
Right, and because I know, Baird's got the same philosophy. I think you're not going to get a job in a position just because of your last name. You have to add value to the company, or, because, your whole team is dependent on you, and you're not just going to,
Very much so, very much so. And for folks that aren't familiar with you in our audience and Hickman Lumber, you've got a nice website up and running, very informative. And what all does Hickman Lumber do today? I know you still have a sawmill operation.
Yeah, so we're, sawmill, and we're mostly trying to do, white oak, red oak, and soft maple is really all we're wanting to cut and run through our dry kilns. If we get, so we manage the forest as well, right? So we manage we own some property, and we manage a lot of private landowners as well. And if we ever get some poplar logs, I'm pretty sure Dad calls Terry and says, what size do you want to cut? And, and so we don't even, we'll cut it, but we won't spend the time in the dry kilns with it. So we're specializing in the rift and quarter sawn and live sawn lumber. And
go ahead. Go ahead. You gave the
so this live sawn cut was cool. This is something that we started cutting this lumber. Well, because with a quarter sawn logs, to do true rift and quarter sawn, you need logs that are at least 16-inch or larger diameter logs, right? To do that quarter sawn, we're actually cutting quarters and you're working your way out. So I know Dad and Pop, they were trying to figure out how to get logs, a lot of times the second or third log of the tree that are 10, 12, 14-inch diameter logs, and get more quarter sawn out of them. So the thought was, well, live sawn, which is an old sawmill term that you just cut straight through the log, and then they were going to rip out the center, and you left with a couple of narrow quarter sawn, rift and quarter sawn boards, right? We started doing it, and it's just like, this is really beautiful looking stuff. You know, you get some of that quartered figure up there, you get the mixed grain and a lot of knots and character because they're the second and third log of the tree where all the branches are. So you get a lot of this cool character.
Right.
And so we started making that into flooring early 2000s. I mean, Livesawn, you know, we were the only game in town selling something called Livesawn flooring, and we started doing it in 2000 and, you know, like mid 2000s. Like there's a couple contractors that picked up, so we're getting more photography of it, you know, getting that name out there. 2013, I wrote an article for the NWFA, the Hardwood Floors magazine, explaining the different cuts and how they're cut and, you know, the specifics with it. And now you see Livesawn all over the place. You know, there's, you know, Livesawn. I mean, your LVT floors, you know, look like Livesawn. And it's sort of a European oak cut too, where you get that the mixed grain and stuff, but still that Livesawn was kind of originated with us and our sawmills.
That's a good comparison
Yeah.
in that the European side. I mean, you know, a lot of things developed through necessity.
Yeah.
And you didn't waste.
Yep. Right.
Right. And in the Livesawn process,
Yeah.
there's minimal waste.
Right, and you're using this. And so this is something else that we are FSC certified, Forest Stewardship Council, right? And so that goes back to how we've managed the forest and that's sustainability on that end. And, you know, and then, you know, it's nothing different than we were doing before, but basically we can sell to a museum or we can sell to somebody that feels good that it's got the stamp on it. I mean, really, you know, any kind of wood product from Eastern Pennsylvania or Eastern United States is pretty sustainable, but we've got that third-party verification for LEED projects and things like that. And this is the type of product that FSC should be promoting, you know, utilizing the stuff, you know, because a lot of the FSC jobs that we get are museums that want 8-inch rift only, where, you know, you might have to go through for 10,000 square feet, you got to go through, you know, 500,000 board feet of material to get that, right? But they want the stamp on it that it's green and sustainable, where, you know, utilizing what the tree and what your manufacturer produces, and it's still beautiful, you know. And so that's if they want that FSC stamp. I mean, that's something that when I got into it, trying to do more of that education, so doing the tours and the lunch and learns with the architects and spending time with people, you know, talking about that. And you know, if you really cared about being green, then, you know, this is the type of stuff you should be doing. Well,
and you know, we've in conversations prior, we've touched about the being green, and we always say around the facility here at Baird's, we were green before government agencies stepped in and came up with the term green, and in utilizing a natural, renewable resource, and you know it from knowing us that we use everything. It's never scrap. You know, we produce a lot of different things. We produce some byproducts, and those byproducts are used in a responsible manner for everything down to the sawdust. The pallets that products come in on, they're ground. They're used as an energy source for dry kiln heat, for buildings, you know, being heated. And I know you guys are the same way. From your bark mulch that you create in the debarking process. The
sawdust for the kilns, everything. The wood chips go to paper factories. It all.
You know, and that's what I say earlier. Not only the companies parallel each other, the families and the philosophy parallel each other quite a bit. And folks will, you know, they'll say, well, why is Baird Brothers talking to Hickman Lumber? You know, or why is Hickman Lumber talking to Baird Brothers, right? There is such a mutual respect between the two companies.
And I'm pretty sure Dad today is getting some doors delivered that you guys are making. He's for his cottage.
That's exactly where I was going.
That was happening.
I mean, you guys have created a great niche wheelhouse that you stay in, and you're very, very good at. And Baird goes a little different direction in some of our product availability, in the doors and the moldings and so forth. And we try and stay in that lane. And between us, we need live son. Who we talking to? We're talking. Terry's talking to Denny Hickman, and you know, and it's a back and forth relationship.
And even that's what Dad said about setting up when because we'd sell a lot of lumber before the flooring plant started. We sold you guys a lot of lumber and still do some. But Terry was a big help and just figuring helping us set up and figure things out. And that's what I've always said about I've enjoyed being in the wood industry, because there are so many good people that just like help each other out, and and it's just we can all grow and be better by helping other people grow.
And you don't find that in every industry.
No, I don't. I mean, everybody I meet within the wood industry in general, it's just like it's a unique thing, I think, and even outside people that see us in, they're like, you guys are kind of weird.
And I don't know what it is about, and I'll say it, us folks. I've had the opportunity to travel like yourself, numerous trade shows, and one of the trade show circuits that we travel, it was called the woodworking shows, and it was anything from guys with a little table saw set up in their garage and a crosscut saw, to doctors or surgeons that their hobby was woodworking, or professional furniture builders. They attended these shows. They all had a mutual respect for what each other did and the product they used, an appreciation.
So maybe this is a theory I just came up with, and maybe we should start studying it, but like the health benefits, right? They're talking about the health benefits of being around wood. Maybe it just makes people nicer people.
No,
and it's just like they're calming. I mean, because that's one of those studies that they're showing, the biophilic design, is how there's like, you get, the healing benefits and the creativity, but maybe it just makes people nicer because they're calmer. I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know. We'll have to talk to people higher up that can do some research on that for me.
I'm going to throw it out there, and I could be the guinea pig. Okay. We do a little segment back here at Studio 3B with our workshop, Build It with Bairds. Okay. And we have a couple partners that we use. One being Oak Hill Millworks over from New Brighton, PA, and they come in, or Christy comes in, and together we'll build a project.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're right. At the end of the day, we have worked for 6, 7, 8 hours on a project, but when you leave, it's like, that was a good day.
Yeah, you accomplished something.
You accomplished something. You created something with your hands.
Yep.
The other thing that comes to mind is when we were doing a little build out, our contractor, our finish contractor, had a man go down on him. He says, "We're at a standstill for a couple of weeks." He says, "Steve, I need a helper." I says, "I got my tool belt. Let me go up on the scaffolding." The best 5 days I have spent, and I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Because you're concentrating on what you're doing, and you see it come to life.
You're not looking at a computer screen all day.
Right. So there might be something there. That'll be your book.
Yeah. Jeez.
Right.
All right.
So go into, the sawmill operation. You still sell lumber.
Yep.
The next big plateau you guys hit was, let's make hardwood flooring.
Yep. And that's, so that's been growing, we're still pretty much in that, we do pretty much solid unfinished.
Don't minimize it. Don't minimize it. We're still in that.
Yeah. But we do some cool stuff. We've been in projects. We've done, I'm working right now with flooring for the Penn State Art Museum. Donald Trump Jr.'s been to our sawmill and done the tour. We've got flooring in the Trump Towers in New York City. We've got flooring in the U.S. Supreme Court. I think Brett Kavanaugh's office they did a couple years ago with a herringbone, ripped and quartered white oak herringbone. Vice President's mansion. We've got some Hollywood musicians, and we've built a reputation with some installers and stuff, and that ripped and quarter sawn that we do, and it's solid unfinished is primarily what we're making, just kind of keeping it, but we make a really good product with it, and
again, here we go back to the common bond between these two companies. You left out two names. That little TV show, This Old House.
This Old House, yeah.
We've
Yeah,
both
we've both
shared
done that one.
experiences with them, and then that other one out of Pittsburgh, Restored by the Fords.
Oh yeah, yep. Leanne Ford, she's done a handful.
Right?
Oh yeah, you guys have done some
And
with
we've,
her too
you know,
as well. Yep.
So we cross paths a
Yep.
lot, overlap each other actually. How, and I'll speak for myself and Baird Brothers, our experiences with This Old House have been extraordinary. Again, woodworking people,
Yeah.
and a mindset that, okay, quality product in, quality end result.
Yep.
And that's, how simple is that philosophy?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we've been fortunate in that relationship, and it's starting to be repetitive
Yeah.
in what we're doing, but you guys, you've been around what, 70 years, 80?
Yeah. So at 20. Yeah. What's the math? 40. So it's 60, 70, 80 years.
Yeah, that's and
yeah.
yeah, because we're at 62
Yeah.
years. We've experienced a lot. You mentioned 2008, 2011, the housing downturn, and
Housing downturn. A third of the sawmills in Pennsylvania went out of business.
yeah,
And so it's not an easy industry to be in.
So, having said that, no, you know what? I know your family lives by it, and I know the Baird family lives by it. You get up in the morning, you put your work boots on, you go to work, try and make something good happen, right? And we've been through the roller coaster ride of the housing industry,
Yeah.
which drives the majority of our business.
Yep.
We're coming off almost 24 months of something this country has never experienced in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
In the COVID pandemic. Did you guys see that change your business model, or how did you shift gears to stay in production? And
Yeah, I mean, it was, so, that was something early on, Governor Wolf, with the shutdown. I mean, it was sawmills and secondary manufacturing were non-essential for a few days. And, but the paper mills and pellet factories were open, they were essential, but, they're dependent on us, right? It's all dependent on each other. So anyways, we had a couple days that we were supposed to be shut down, but that all, so we were, kept going. But the demand's just been insane, and and the supply chain issues, and I know with engineered right now, the Baltic birch, like all the Baltic birch, all the logs, even stuff that was, maybe plywood that was made in Poland or Finland, all the logs were from Russia, so we're not getting that anymore, right? So I mean, it's just American made, American products milled here. There's just an increased demand for that, and trying to get more production out is the the issue. And I think it's, I don't know, people been in their houses and they want updates and refresh, and so that, I think that's part of it. But I think there is a growing demand for U.S. source products, just because it's local, it's here, it's made, and it's just, so it's just that getting more people into the industry, like to help work work in this industry, in the wood industries, from the forest, making sure there's more loggers, to the sawmill, to the secondary manufacturing. I think that's as a country, we need to help encourage young folks to get into those industries.
And I agree 100% on all fronts. And we here at Baird's, we experienced what I describe as the perfect storm. Going through the early shutdown, we went through about a 2.5 week company-wide shutdown.
Oh, was it that long?
We went old school, separate, leave this thing,
Yeah.
burn itself out within our facility,
Okay.
and then come back to work. Thankfully for a fantastic workforce that we have here, dedicated employees, workers. We came back after 2 weeks with about 85% guys returning voluntarily.
Yeah.
And because, like you, we were deemed in Western Pennsylvania as non-essential for a little while, and then that changed, and that allowed our drivers to go over and our salespeople to go into Western Pennsylvania. But what happened was people were stuck at home. You weren't allowed to travel. You couldn't travel.
Right.
You couldn't go on your vacations. You had your money saved up for your vacation.
Yeah.
And the husband and wife, they're sitting around having conversation, and they're saying, well, let's do something to the house.
Right.
Let's put hardwood floor in.
Yeah.
Let's do an accent wall.
Yeah.
Let's switch the interior doors out. And, you know, thank God that we had the workforce that was able to supply that demand of what we were seeing. And because it was a worldwide pandemic and the supply chain issues, we saw a product that you mentioned earlier, poplar, go crazy on the demand end because people couldn't get the medium density fiberboard, the MDF moldings out of Venezuela and some of the other foreign countries. So they needed a paint grade product. You know, we manufacture what we consider a very nice higher end paint grade product in finger jointed poplar, pre-primed, ready to be installed and finished coat painted. And there was a point we couldn't make it fast enough, you know, and it was a good problem to have.
Right.
But you know, so the COVID, you know, it made us shift gears to service our local retail customers. You know, we went to a hands-free will call, order online or order by phone. Prepay, pull in, come to the will call at the front of the trim building. Don't even get out of your car. We'll load it for you, and out the gate you went. You know. And we had to tweak it a little bit, you know, to make it more efficient than what it was prior to, but we did, and we learned from it, and it made us better in that end of the retail side. And coming out of it now, you know, the white oak is just crazy.
We've been pushing red oak like crazy. Red oak rift only, rift and quartered. Red oak is, you know, and we've been selling, actually our sales right now from red oak to white oak and the rift and quarter sawn, we probably have more sales in red oak, rift and quartered right now than white oak.
And that's a good place to be.
It's great, and that's great because, I mean, red oak, nobody wants red oak, but then the price value of it and the availability of it, there's a lot more red oak trees growing in Pennsylvania than white oak, and, you know, your whiskey barrels and wine barrels need white oak, so we're competing with those guys for the big logs, same way you need for quarter sawn. And the red oak that comes from our region is really pretty red oak too.
It's beautiful.
Know? It's in the tight growth rings, and you know it's a nice color. It stains well. So we've been doing a lot more of that, and it's easier to get rift. I mean, that rift only cut. It's crazy how that people want that look, especially wide plank rift, which is really difficult to get. Wide plank, I mean, you know this, but a lot of people don't by how it's the logs cut. Wide plank rift, it's kind of an oxymoron, but it's easier to get in red oak because the medullary rays in red oak are smaller, so it's easier to get that rift in the red oak.
And that's a beautiful product.
It is.
It's dropped a gorgeous product. And you and I, we just spent some time together down at the Pittsburgh Home and Garden Show. In both our backyards, in your front yard. And we were talking, and both of those species, the red oak and the white oak, they have their own characteristics, and coloration is one of them. But when you go, whether it's a flat sawn red oak board or a flat sawn white oak board or quarter sawn or rift sawn, they stand alone with a clear finish on them. They have their own identity. But you and I've had this conversation. If you're on a stain scale from 0 to 10 and you're in a 3 or a 4, the red's going to give you a very similar finished product. You get into a 5 or a 6, you're going
hard
to
to
have
tell
an
the
educated eye to
Yeah.
tell whether it's red or white.
Yep. But then your pocketbook for that red oak's going to be a lot less than it
Right.
is for the white oak. So
Right.
it's,
Right
when people
now-
start looking at that.
Yeah.
It's a good alternative.
No, but it hasn't let up.
No. Yeah, no, it's the white oak's still way. I mean, in that that higher end look, that white oak is still just a wide plank, crazy.
And I know you have established relationships with architects and designers. What do they feel, or what do you feel has fed this white oak craziness?
I mean, it just goes with everything. I mean, white oak is just really versatile. I mean, you could paint this trim purple, and that white oak would look good with it. You know, it looks good with walnut. It looks good with cherry. It does. Just that natural warmth of the white oak. I mean, it really is it's a really beautiful wood. I mean, that's what I put in my house. You know, I've been pushing red oak like crazy, but I put the white oak in my own house. But just that neutral, that warmth, and you can get it lighter too. I mean, that's a popular look too. You see that like adding a little bit of white to it instead of just the clear coat to make it look unfinished. That real matte, that unfinished. That's and the finishing companies have come a long ways with making a product that you can finish it to make it look like it's unfinished.
You know what I like in the businesses that we're in? I like how many companies are out there making imitation products trying to make it look like wood.
Right.
I think that's the highest compliment.
It is. Yeah, that's true. Yep. This is what the ultimate goal is for the look. People love it. I mean, that's universal.
And they can get pretty close, but they can't get the feel.
They can't get the feel. Nope. And and then who knows what off gases and toxins is putting into your home with some of that. I mean, there's a Healthy Materials Lab. healthymaterialslab.org, I think, is the website, because I'm the Living Building Challenge. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's kind of like LEED on steroids, where they want to use healthy building material. So they want to use sustainable. LEED is all about like green source products, right, and making energy efficient. Well, then healthy building. What is it? Living Building Challenge. That's what it is. Living Building Challenge is talking about more like how do we build homes in environments that promote your health, right? So even like in commercial buildings, making the stairs more accessible. So you take stairs instead of escalator or elevator type of thing. So anyways, I've been researching a lot of this and reading it. I'm thinking about building my own house someday, and led me to this site. It's called healthymaterialslab.org, and it's like big. Stay away from that plastic, the laminate imitation. Like, it's some of the most toxic chemicals made with this, and it's like, I mean, in a lot of that green community there, you don't reheat your food and like your kids' baby food in plastic, right? Because the chemical oscars. So it's crazy to put plastic all through your house that you're living in, and it's terrible for the environment. It's bad for your health. One of the early things that actually got me reading more about this was a vet called to like talk about flooring, and she went to flooring, and she started going on about it, and she said, I don't have proof, but I see a lot more cancer rates in small dogs than I ever used to, and she thinks it has to do with some of that plastic imitation flooring, and so these small dogs, she's like, the cancer rate's been through the roof in the last 5-10 years, and she's like, there's no way I'd put that stuff in my house, and that's what she was looking for. Flooring.
It's common sense. Natural product.
Yeah.
Natural product. It did its job out in the forest, and it serves on for an eternity inside of your home.
Yep, it literally is a win-win,
Yeah, right. So what do you see down the road for Hickman lumber and Allegheny flooring?
Oh man, there's 9 grandkids now that could be 5th generation, so I don't know. They're all pretty young, but I think we're just, we're growing. We've got some new equipment ordered. It's, things are back ordered a year out for normal things that you need, so it's slow growth, but I mean, I don't see things slowing down for a while. I think it's all good stuff.
Well, you mentioned new equipment.
Yeah.
And it's that reinvesting back into your company. Bairds are very aware of that. They practice that yearly. Mm-hmm. And new technologies. I equate our production, whether it be an interior door, hardwood floor, and I know you guys are the same. You've made a comment in the past that if you can get a customer to your booth at a trade show and they walk up and they put their hand against the flooring, they're sold.
Yep.
They're sold. I relate that back to the manufacturing practices that you guys have, the manufacturing practices that we try to instill here at Baird's. All the technology, all the new equipment, it's fantastic. It might make a job easier,
Yep.
but our products come down to the human eyes and the human hands.
Yep.
And you guys manufacture a beautiful quality product, as does Baird's, and I think you're right. I don't see it slowing down, and even if it does, good companies like Hickman Lumber and Baird Brothers, they always find their way through it.
Yeah.
So 9 grandkids.
Yeah, that's Dad's got 9. Yep, I only have 2. That's plenty for me, but yeah, there's 9.
You have Grandma Jane as a full-time
Pretty much
sitter?
babysitter. Yeah, she pretty much has kids there a couple nights a week, anyways.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Hey, continued success to the Hickman family. I think you know how we appreciate you and the family and the business, and I think there's a lot more exciting stuff down the road for both companies.
Yeah.
And you know what? In the not too distant future, we're gonna have you back, and we're gonna have you drag Denny back over.
Let's get him and Terry
Right?
here together talking.
Yeah, that'd be a great
It'll
conversation.
be hunting. It'll be a whole hunting podcast.
We got to do it. We got to
All
do
right.
it. Folks, thanks for joining in today. Great conversation with our friend Jessica Hickman Fresch from Hickman Lumber. Follow along with them. Follow along on our socials. And until next time, hang in there, folks. We'll be back.
For all you folks listening, thanks for talking shop with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to stay up to date with the American Hardwood Advisor Series, give us a like and subscribe. For more tips, projects, and inspiration, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or at BairdBrothers.com. Until next time. Brought to you direct from Studio 3B at Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, the American Hardwood Advisor is your source for trends, tips, and insights into how the building industry has evolved. Join me, Steve Stack, along with guest builders and industry leaders as we talk shop and go in depth on what it takes to be the best of the best. Dive into topics like architecture, industry trends, project plans, historical tools, tricks of the trade, and life's lessons from more than 6 decades of experience in the hardwood lumber business. Hey everybody, welcome back to Studio 3B out here at Baird Brothers Fine Hardwood. Steve Stack, Director of New Business Development, and we have a very interesting, educational interview coming up with you folks today. Amy Shields, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Amy Shields, Executive Director of Allegheny Hardwoods Utilization Group from Western Pennsylvania. I hear you're going to teach us some stuff today.
I'll try. I'll try.
I know the group, the hug group that you're with, but I know you have a lot of other associations and anything from education to legislation, advocacy groups. You're a busy girl.
Yeah, yeah, we are. I'm very busy. AHUG's they got a lot of work under their mandate, a lot of different areas of focus, and so it keeps me very busy.
Good. One of the big things, and before we start talking about some of the programs and things that you guys implement over in Western PA, I heard it in conversation earlier. You're on the education side now, but at one time, you and your husband had a sawmill operation?
Yeah, well, my husband and his brother had a sawmill. So in 1988, my husband and his brother bought a sawmill. Back then, they basically were just buying themselves jobs. Neither one of them had any experience in that. My husband's got a geography degree, and my brother-in-law was kind of looking to get into construction. But instead, he went to lumber grading school, and my husband kind of shifted his focus to learning about timber and how it grows and how to buy and sell it. And then I came along in 1992 and joined the operation. I've got an accounting background. That's my field.
Okay.
So we had that mill from 1988 to 2006 when it became then part of the Binghamton organization, Binghamton Lumber out of Pennsylvania. So we were looking to try to figure out where we wanted to go in the future. That was back in 2006. Folks were everyone was putting in dry kilns, and globalization was kind of becoming the big ticket, and we weren't really sure if we wanted to expand to that degree. So just so happened, one of our lumber customers also said, have you guys ever considered selling your mill? And we got to talking, and it was a fit. They were like family. So my husband and I and my brother-in-law initially managed that facility in Elk County, Pennsylvania for the Binghamtons. They also owned another mill over in eastern Pennsylvania, similar size. So then we managed that one as well. And then in 2015, they bought a third mill in south central Pennsylvania. And at that point, my brother-in-law retired. My husband and I managed all 3 of their sawmill locations for them. And then in 2019, we decided, we were going to step back from the sawmill business. And I had been a long-time board member and volunteer with AHUG. So he kind of stepped into retirement, and I stepped into the executive director seat at AHUG in January of 2020. And I've been there for the last two and a half years.
Very good. So, folks, I've had the opportunity in traveling to the Pittsburgh Home and Garden Show. Mm-hmm. And that was where I met Amy, and we have a mutual friend in the Hickman family.
Right.
And so we've had limited conversation, and I was thinking after our conversation and a little bit of time we spent together down there, I said, this lady is interesting. I said, I need to introduce her to our audience, and so I invited you over, and thanks again for coming across.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it, and we have a lot to talk about, and I got to go right to the kiddos.
Okay.
Okay. And it involves a story that I heard a little earlier, but it involves the Pennsylvania Division of Agriculture, I believe it is.
Department of Agriculture.
Department of Agriculture, the Woodmobile.
Right.
Okay. I visited that every year when I go down to the Pittsburgh Home and Garden Show. Right. And folks, I don't know, it's a 40-foot van?
Yeah, I think it's 40 feet, something like that.
And it is quite the assembly of education, history.
Right. Interactive.
Everything from interactive displays and devices in the trailer, right, to coloring books for the kiddos.
Yeah.
And take me through that a little bit. I mean, that's a cool. Folks, if you haven't seen it, go to Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture.
Department of Agriculture's website, and you can just put Woodmobile in the search, and it's got its own page under the Hardwoods Development Council.
Young or old, it's very interesting.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Yeah. So I'll step back. I'll just tell you, back in as I mentioned, we've been in this business a long time. One of our children, our oldest son, who's actually 28, when he was in first grade, came home and was very upset because he had learned in school that day that, the forests are being mowed down by the loggers. The example was really about the rainforest, but that didn't really come across in the lesson. What he heard from that was the oxygen's being pulled from the air every time we cut a tree down, and cutting down trees is a bad thing. So he came home and was very upset because his parents were in the business, and how could we possibly contribute to the end of the world as he knew it. So at that point I was really like, we really need to do something. Our kids are hearing the wrong message at school. That's what led me to get involved in AHUG, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit later about all of the different things under the AHUG mandate. But one of the primary things that AHUG does is education and outreach, both to the general public and to students. And in doing that, one of the primary ways that we do that is traveling with the Pennsylvania Woodmobile. So the Woodmobile is a joint effort between the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture and private industry in Pennsylvania. There are about 30 companies who have contributed material. If you walk in, the Woodmobile is just beautiful. It's cherry cabinets. It's got a beautiful white oak and walnut floor that was produced by Hickman lumber. So just a great display. On one side, it shows a map of the state of Pennsylvania and where our forested areas are located. A big discussion about the history of our forests, how they were first. You know, it was a softwood forest, 90% softwood back in the day when folks first arrived here and harvested everything for the building of the country and the fueling of the Industrial Revolution. So it kind of goes through that history, shows, you know, pretty frank pictures of what the hillsides looked like back then, but then moves into the discussion of how, you know, once those softwoods were gone, the hardwoods, which were always here, you know, sprang to life and generated the forests that we see today. Shows some, there's a great section in there on invasive species. Part of the funding for the Woodmobile comes from the USDA, so they provide some invasive species and invasive pest monies for the Woodmobile to get that information out to folks. And then on the right-hand side of the inside is all about the industry. So everything from defining what primary manufacturing is to secondary manufacturing, the products that are made, how no part of the tree goes to waste. We've got statistics in there. Pennsylvania, the hardwood industry is the 9th largest employer in Pennsylvania. Over 60,000 people work in the industry, and we've got over 2,100 companies with a business presence in every one of Pennsylvania's 67 counties. So it's a huge player in our economy, and all of that information is there in the Woodmobile for folks to see. And then we've got a couple of interactive, we've got some touchscreen units that folks can learn about invasive species and pests. We've got some little turnstile games where folks can try to figure out the species, you know, compare the bark and the leaf and see if you can guess what species it is. That's always a big popular one. We've got a display of hardwood baseball bats that were all made in Pennsylvania. And then we've got a case that's it's just loaded with items, and you're supposed to figure out which of the two things in that case are not made with any wood fiber. And it's a stumper. I won't spoil it. I'll wait till folks see the Woodmobile for themselves. But it's great. And we've got a ton of literature. Everything in there is free. Folks can take tree ID books. We've got books on identifying invasive plants and pests and what to do about them if you see them, how to get in touch with a forestry company to have someone look at your property. We've got puzzles and stuff for kids, coloring books. We just got, it's amazing, all of what's packed in the Woodmobile.
So a couple takeaways. Number one, there's no admission to walk through this.
Yep, it's free
Woodmobile.
of charge. Yep.
It's free of charge. And when you have a chance to visit, or if you're visiting online and going through it, two things stand out to me. A lot of things stand out, but two takeaways that I always admire: the wood bicycle.
Yeah.
And there's a pretty fancy guitar in there.
Right. So there's a bicycle that's made out of cherry and hard maple, curly maple, which is a stunner. People are always taken aback by it, and it's fully functional. That's the number one question we get: can you really ride this? And we do. And then there's also a Martin guitar that's made from trees that were harvested after Hurricane Sandy, and it's beautiful guitar, very valuable, and it's in there for display as well. So you mentioned earlier, originally Pennsylvania was laden with some of the softwood species, right. the hem firs, the spruce. Hemlocks and firs, and pine and spruce.
And when that was nothing short of devastated,
right,
right, an amazing occurrence happened.
Right. So the hardwoods were already part of our landscape. They just were not able to flourish because, softwoods their canopy really closes in and it creates that dark environment. And also I'll say it was devastating what happened with our forests, but it is also the reality that it fueled our nation.
Oh yeah.
That's how our
Yes.
cities were built. I mean, originally, the ship masts were taken from some of the tallest softwood trees in Pennsylvania, but that's where the lumber came from to fuel the building of the country. It's where the bark has a tannic acid, and that's what's used to make to tan leather. In the Industrial Revolution, all of those early machines were they were all belt driven,
yeah.
and all of those belts required, being tanned. They were leather. So that really fueled the Industrial Revolution in the country. So we did basically, harvest pretty much everything there was, and it left us with some with hillsides that were barren of trees. But there was seed source there. There were seeds. There were hardwood trees that were waiting to come to life, and that's really where our forest came from that you see today. And that mixture of all of our northern forest types, our all the different species that we have in Pennsylvania, they were all there. They're all native. So that's really what spawned that change.
So that makes for an easy spin. In that Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, the resource that we use, it's very easy to say it's a natural, self-renewing, natural resource. And through your programs and your affiliations, you take it one step further. Mother Nature takes care of herself, but through processes and techniques and harvesting, management, and so forth, you guys enhance her work.
That's right. That's right. I mean, human interaction in a healthy forest is key. I mean, that's a big part of it. I mean, we have moved from that early model of all of the hillsides being bare of trees. We're not going to see that again. We've learned that lesson. So the ensuing 100 years has been about conservation and really understanding and building a forestry practice that is built on sustainability and management. And that's a key part of how forestry is practiced, not just in Pennsylvania, but in the hardwood forest. We're fortunate here in our hardwood forest on the eastern side of this country that, if done well and done forcefully and people are aware of it, it is we have natural regeneration here. So we don't really need to go out and replant every tree that we harvest. Those forest management processes that we employ to go in and really treat a forest as a garden, if you will, to enter in and remove trees periodically to thin out the forest and to carefully, cultivate what's there and at the same time plan the forest of the future while you're growing, that source that you can harvest and take product from is key.
And I've experienced it. I've been in the woods, and we were having a conversation about harvesting, and another partner of ours in the forestry logging end of it, he says, "Watch this." And it was a nice day out. There was some sunshine, but we were under the canopy. And it was a nice mature tree, had served its purpose, and it was time to be harvested. So he dropped the tree, and as soon as he dropped the tree, the sky opened.
Yeah.
And that sunlight came in.
Right. Hits the floor and
started getting that nutrition down to those youngsters
that
had came off of that tree.
That's right, and that's what foresters will do is enter into an area and take a look at the forest floor, make sure they see the beginnings of those seedlings and that they're there. And then, through a practice of select cutting where you might go into an area and open up a specific area of the canopy, or a thinning where you're taking a tree here and there out of a larger area. All of that is designed to open up that canopy, get that light to the forest floor, and help that next generation of trees come along.
So it's all about managing the forest resource.
Right.
And through managing that, the forest gives you better production.
That's right. I mean, in Pennsylvania, we do have, all of those trees were harvested back in the day, and then, all of our new trees grew and they got to a certain age, and, we do have a situation in Pennsylvania where there are areas of just even aged forests, right? They're all older. We have some areas that have, very mature trees in that 80 to 100 year range, and then we've got a larger swath of forests in Pennsylvania who are at that 50 to 60 year range, but that's all that's in those forests. We need to create, and are working now to create, that young habitat, that young early successional forest, where we're really actively working to make sure there are young forests, middle-aged trees, and then the older trees, all in the same given stand. That's the best way to create an optimum healthy forest. And
So
all of that
you have
takes
that rotation.
continuous cycle and management,
Right.
and constantly entering and pruning. And
So you may go into a stand of timber and say, okay, we're doing 24 inches and above, knowing that has a certain age to it, or
yeah, even there, picking a certain diameter limit is generally not what they'll do to promote a good mix of forest ranges. Even in a situation where they do have a lot of large mature trees to take out of there, even in that sense, they'll leave a few of those. They might not take all of those out of there because that's the seed source for the next gen. A tree will eventually stop doing that, and eventually it'll be its turn to be
Right.
harvested as well. But really, the foresters are very in tune with making those decisions and making sure we have a good mix of age class.
Mother Nature has seen to it in the hardwood species that they will self-regenerate,
Yeah.
repopulate. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing in and of itself. I think it's even more amazing, one of the primary services that tree gives us while it's alive in the forest, and you know where I'm going with it. Take us through. Because of forests, we have fantastic air quality.
Right, that's right. So, this is a big hot topic at the moment. Everyone's talking about the climate and how our forests are going to play a role in climate change. And really, that's another reason why it's really important to focus on this mix of young, middle-aged, and old trees in a forest stand, because trees, there's a difference between sequestering carbon, which is pulling the carbon out of the atmosphere, and storing carbon, which means I'm just hanging on to it and it's in my cells and it's not going to go anywhere. So trees don't actually, young trees actually pull more carbon from the atmosphere as they grow. And then the older they get, that cycle of pulling carbon slows down and they just become carbon storage. And then a tree left to stand and not be harvested and utilized will then eventually fall over. And when they fall over, their carbon starts to, come back out into the atmosphere. So there is a good, forests are great in that entire climate and carbon cycle conversation. What we are working towards is really understanding that optimal mix of having young trees for sequestration, old trees for carbon, older trees for carbon storage, but then harvesting those trees at a certain point in their life so that we can make use and make long-term storage of carbon out of the produced goods. Because this bench is storing carbon, and it will be there for a long time. If the same tree that makes this bench is allowed to just fall over in the forest and degrade, its carbon is released back
Then it
into the
becomes a
atmosphere. Yep.
And that's it. I mean, that tree lives on in a product for a long,
as
long
the product
time.
is here.
Yeah, you know, you're using this carpenter's bench as a visual aid here, and this dates back to 1890.
Yeah, right. And it's still storing carbon, so right.
So there is long-term benefit
That's right.
through harvesting and utilization.
That's right. And that's the mix that the carbon programs need to really hone in on, is this world where it all kind of lives in harmony, where we're working on our forest to create a mix of young, middle-aged, and old trees, but we're also recognizing that the long-term carbon storage of a produced good is a valuable part of that carbon conversation.
So through proper management, we get, as humans, we get great benefit from that stand of timber, that forest. Not to even mention the benefit to wildlife.
Right. Yep. Yep. That young forest is also, you know, young, middle-aged, and old forest provides habitat to certain creatures all along the way. So when we talked a few minutes ago about how some areas of Pennsylvania have very mature forests, and some people will walk into a mature forest and think they're seeing a healthy forest because it's just a bunch of tall, straight trees, but they don't really see anything in the undergrowth.
Right.
That's actually not a healthy forest. And what we found in there, and one of the big focuses currently, is that is actually very poor habitat for songbirds. Songbirds need early successional. They need those young trees, that young brush and those young trees, in order to come in and you know, flourish in an area. So, but there are other creatures who might need an older forest. There are some raptors, for example, who thrive in an old growth habitat. But interestingly, they might feed in a young successional. So they need you know, some of that young forest next to them. So, and the same is true, you know, when you see a timber harvest, some folks might look and see that the treetops have been left in the forest, and they think that's a bad thing when they see that. That creates not only protection for the seedlings so that they're not eaten by deer, but it also provides habitat and cover for turkey and grouse and woodcock and you know, all of those bunnies, you know, all of that. So
you mentioned the wildlife species I was thinking of, and my association with it in self-witnessing it is the beech tree. Beech trees are like a turkey's best friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
The mature tree, not only does it drop the seedlings, and in the spring, this time of year, when those seed pods start to sprout, the turkeys go crazy over them. Yeah. And after they've had their fill and did their strut for the day, where do they go back to? They go back to that mature beech tree and use that as a roosting tree.
Yeah, that's right.
You know.
Yep. So really, it's a big, you know, having a healthy forest with all the diversity in age class is a huge factor in the kind of wildlife and birds that we see in the Pennsylvania forest too.
Okay, so you're giving me an education. Let's talk about some of your other educational projects that you folks take on, and I know a few, the paper making projects, the tree cookie, and the forest of many uses. Right. Just touch on it.
Okay, so I mentioned a few minutes ago about AHUG working with the Pennsylvania Woodmobile. When we partner with the Woodmobile, we generally will do a number of stations for students when they come in. And these the first couple that I'll mention are targeted towards elementary age students, about grades 3 to 5. But we use a project or a program called Project Learning Tree. And Project Learning Tree has just, I think they have 96 different activities from K through 12th grade that you can use to just bring awareness to students about the forests themselves, about the forest products industry, about the jobs and careers that are available. But a couple of the ones that we do pretty regularly, one is called Forest of Many Uses. And in that one, the kids all become a tree in the forest, and an individual tree. And we put them all in a group, standing up, and then we walk through them and we sprinkle different colors of construction paper, yellow, blue, and green, for sunlight, water, and nutrients. And we sprinkle those around, and then we tell the kids, when we say go, you can grab as much of the sunlight, water, and nutrients as you can get without moving your left leg. You have to keep your taproot still. And when they do that, they'll find that most of them didn't get much water, or they didn't get a lot of sunlight, or they didn't get much nutrient. And then we'll talk about how a forester can come through an area and help a landowner figure out how to thin their forest or manage their forest. We'll take a few of the kids and tap them on the head and tell them they're going to head to the log truck, and then that gives us an opportunity at the end of the exercise to talk about what becomes of the logs that went to the mill. And then we go back through and do the same exercise, and now they're able to gather more sunlight, water, and nutrient, and it's a really great visual for them of how thinning a forest is a good thing and how it helps. And we talk about things like, why we leave certain trees along this imaginary stream, right? Because we want to make sure that canopy stays over the stream and keeps the water cool, because the fish need it to be able to thrive. But that's a really good visual for the kids. They enjoy that one. Another one that we do is tree cookie. We'll take really just a slice off the end of a couple of logs, take them into the classroom. We're able to talk to the kids about how trees grow, how they add growth rings. We talk to them about how their own food source moves in the body of the tree, and the phloem and the cambium and all of that stuff. And then we'll count the growth rings, and then we'll have the kids actually mark on that tree's lifeline where different things happened. How old was this tree when you were born? How old was this tree when something significant happened in my community? And it really builds a connection, to the students that, these trees are here, they came from my community, and, our forests are a living, breathing, piece of our community. So we do those programs for elementary students. We also do career fairs for all age groups, talking about all the different careers that are available in the hardwood industry across the state. We have gone out and we've got a couple of community colleges in our area, so we'll provide connection with industry to bring in speakers on subject matter, from careers to invasive species, or just whatever subject matter that they might be looking for. So we do a fair amount of that outreach too.
So very similar to our local Home Builders Association, the HBA, and I'm tying this together in that the HBA is there for construction industry individuals, whether it be through education, career opportunities, or more importantly, and you haven't mentioned it yet, you go to the National Association of the Home Builders.
Right.
And I know that you folks also represent the landowners, the forest managers, et cetera, at both the state and federal levels.
Yep, we do a lot of interaction with.
And when the circle comes back around, you are representing those
That's right.
property owners.
That's right.
And you're going to bat for them
Yep.
with the big boys.
That's right. That's one of the mandates for AHUG as well, is providing representation for the industry. Our industry is very segmented, but it's also there are a lot of small businesses, from loggers, landowners, land managers, sawmills, secondary manufacturers. They don't all have time to be out there advocating for themselves, but they have needs. And so we do a lot of legislative interaction, a lot of taking legislators out on tours to inform them about forest practices, but also to take the needs, be it workforce development or environmental regulation, whatever it might be, back from our companies to the legislators. And we do that on and again, I'm a regional organization. I cover the 14 counties of Northwest and North Central PA, and I'm one of the 3 hardwood utilization groups in Pennsylvania. We work hand in hand with our state forestry trade association, Pennsylvania Forest Products Association, which I believe Baird is a member of. They are our state level advocate, but we do a lot of work with them. And then on the federal level, we're very fortunate in our region of Pennsylvania that we've got a great relationship with one of our U.S. Representatives, G.T. Thompson, who's actually on the Ag Committee for the House. So that's a really key connection for us on the federal level. And in that work, we also, AHUG's been fortunate to be part of a a national level consumer awareness program that's being put together called the Real American Hardwood Coalition. That's also a federal level, program that we're very lucky to be a part of. I'll get into that if you want, but I'll wait.
Something to look forward to, and we'll definitely want to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
So you and your organization, you're the boots on the ground,
Right.
working with the individuals, the people managing the forest. You're educating, you're consulting them on proper management, and then you're their advocate. You're their voice, right, on the far end of things.
Mm-hmm.
In between, I have to believe, and you having a background in it, somewhere along the line, safety and procedures have to come in from the forest has been managed, now it's time to harvest.
Right.
So the loggers,
Right.
from the loggers to the sawmill,
Right.
and then from the sawmill to Baird Brothers.
Uh-huh.
And
Yep.
do you have safety?
We do. We work hand in hand with, in Pennsylvania, the biggest logger safety training program in our state is called the Sustainable Forestry Initiative of Pennsylvania. Sustainable Forestry Initiative is a North American forest certification program, but each individual state has a state implementation committee, and our state implementation committee is deeply involved in logger training. And it extends beyond loggers, foresters, truck drivers, a lot of folks in that primary processing capacity. So there are about 900, I think, card-carrying, fully trained, safety certified hardwood professionals through the SFI program. And AHUG works with them to put training programs on. We have one coming up next week in first aid and CPR, but they're also trained in chainsaw safety. And, we had a program earlier this week on rural trauma survival for a logger, how to care for yourself in the event of a catastrophe until help gets to you.
Yeah.
So we do an awful lot of work with SFI and the logging community.
That's interesting. And we know in our industry the inherent dangers, but if you can present it to someone enough,
Yes.
it's
It's
there.
there. And that group is also, we're working really hard on the, that safety track record is also a big part of what the workers' compensation rates are for the logging community in Pennsylvania. That's another big area of emphasis that we're working on. That kind of takes us across the gamut, though, of safety training and also that legislative connection as we work on those things.
So you have this organization, AHUG, you yourself representing 14 counties, and you have partners throughout the state in other regions.
Right.
Do you see the same type of organization through other states in the country?
I actually haven't yet encountered anyone who does it quite the way Pennsylvania does it, in that sense with the regional organizations. I think there are some regional logging groups here in Ohio that I'm aware of. All of the hardwood states that I'm aware of have something similar to Pennsylvania Forest Products Association, their state level trade association. For us in Pennsylvania, the HUGs really got started, and actually our group was the first of those. AHUG got started back in the early 80s when there was simultaneously this need that industry was looking to raise awareness of the quality of the hardwoods in Pennsylvania, and also the industry who was providing them. And what the key connection was in their ability to thrive as an industry and how that related to forest health, right? Because that's where the boots on the ground, that's how the forest management gets done. At that same time, there was also the beginnings of the environmental movement heading into Pennsylvania. My region is home to the only national forest in Pennsylvania, the Allegheny National Forest. And we started to see protests, some work to actually stop harvesting in Pennsylvania. In addition to the Allegheny National Forest, that area that I work in primarily is also has probably the highest concentration of public land overall in the state of Pennsylvania. We've got not only the national forest, but a lot of Pennsylvania state forest and Pennsylvania game lands in that area. So, having an industry that's based there and then having public land management there as a key driver, there's a need for constant dialogue between the two so that the industry gets the resource they need, but the land management folks get, the responsibility that they need in managing those forests well. So that was sort of the birth of AHUG, and that spawned several other similar hardwood utilization groups in Pennsylvania. And then the need through the Department of Agriculture to kind of put an umbrella organization over all of us so that we could function together as a team. And that's how the Hardwoods Development Council came along, where the Woodmobile is currently housed.
And that's no small task.
It is not.
In that Pennsylvania is one of, if I'm not mistaken, one of the largest hardwood producing states in the United States.
Yep, we are the, I'm not sure if we're still exactly the leader, but I think we're the leader in hardwood production and hardwood export. We export over $1 billion worth of logs and lumber product every year. Our industry itself provides $21 billion worth of economic development and impact to the state's economy, and $36 billion a year in indirect impact. So it's a huge driver. We are one of the largest hardwood producing states in the country. The state itself is about 60% forested with just under 17 million acres of forest land. So it's a huge. I have conversation with folks, and here at Baird Brothers we offer the core group of native hardwoods: the poplar, the maple, the cherry, the hickory, the ash, the red oak, the white oak, the black walnut, if I didn't say it. And they say, well, where does it come from? Where do you get it? And I tell people, we very closely located to you here in Ohio and you in PA. I tell people we're in hardwood heaven. Yep. And that area of Pennsylvania is really, we refer to it as the wood basket. If you look at the map of Pennsylvania, we've got a huge chunk of forested area in that upper, northwest, north central region. We've got another in the south central part of the state, and then we've kind of got Pittsburgh and Philly on either side of that, and then we've got the northern tier to the eastern part of the state is also heavily forested. But there's no doubt you're right in the heart of it here. And
we look at
West
being
Virginia,
here in Ohio.
Yeah.
We have Pennsylvania to the east, then we have West Virginia, then we have Kentucky, then we swing around and catch Indiana, and we have a little entrance up into Michigan.
Yeah.
If you want some of the premier hardwood in the United States, we have access to it. Pennsylvania cherry.
Yeah. Cherry has always been a bread and butter species for us in Pennsylvania. We're known as the black cherry capital of the world, and specifically that region of north central Pennsylvania, where I'm from, has really been a key driver in the economy of our forests for a long time.
You know, and folks may not realize, they may not know it, different species thrive in different regions.
Yeah.
And why do they do that? The mineral content in the soil conditions.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about some of the most premier cherry lumber in the world.
Right in our region. One of the other things that AHUG has on their plate is support for hardwood research and development. So one of the things that we're wrapping up right now, Pennsylvania has a PA Farm Bill. We've been really lucky to have that in the last couple of years, that it funds a lot of training, a lot of research and development work on the ground. But one of the projects that we were funded for was a study about why birch seems to be having such a heyday in our region. It's become sort of a prolific regenerator in the last 2 decades, and we're trying to understand why that is, because at the same time, we're also seeing a slight decline in the quality of our cherry, and not just in the quality of it, but in the regeneration of it. So it's regenerating more slowly, a little less successfully, and we're trying to figure out why. So there are some things that seem to go hand in hand with that together. One being that if you look at the map of Pennsylvania, our specific region has traditionally had a lot of nitrogen deposited in our soil, which is something that cherry thrives on and that birch is the opposite for. As things like the Clean Air Act came to be, 2 decades ago, that's had an impact on how, what happens in the central part of the United States impacts the air quality and the soil deposition for some of those things like nitrogen in our soil.
Yeah.
And we believe that's having some impact on why we're seeing cherry decline and birch thrive. So that's just something else that AHUG's involved in, where we get to dip our toes in a lot of different waters out there, but it helps us bring a well-rounded host of information back to our companies that they need.
Very, very interesting. And folks, if you want to learn more about forestry management, educational programs available from Amy and the group over at AHUG.
Right.
What's the best way for them to get hold of you, Amy?
Oh, just go to our website, www.ahug.com. It is in the revision process, so we're working to build a better site, but it'll give you the contact information to get in touch with us so that we can reach out and provide whatever assistance you might need.
Any other good resources that people can dive into to educate themselves a little more?
Yeah, sure. The Pennsylvania Hardwoods Development Council, as I said, if you go to the PA Department of Agriculture, Hardwoods Development has their own site. There's some good information there about our industry. The Pennsylvania Forest Products Association is another, that's really our state trade association, so they've got a lot of great info about who the players are in the hardwood game in Pennsylvania. We're also very fortunate to have Penn State in our pocket there in Pennsylvania. We do a lot of work with Penn State Extension. They've got an amazing website that's just filled with information on, timber management, how to look into having a timber sale on your property, but also things like spotted lanternfly and all of the various invasive pests and plants that we have kind of creeping into our wheelhouse in Pennsylvania. So all of those are really good resources to check out.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this today. We've had a great visit from Amy Shields, Executive Officer of Allegheny Hardwood Utilization Group. Amy,
Yeah, thank
it
you.
has been our pleasure
Thank you.
having you today.
Thank you.
Don't be a stranger, and we're going to have some more conversation about maybe a visit later this fall.
Yeah,
Okay?
we'd love to bring the Woodmobile out. And,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
that'd be
We'll
great.
work on that.
Okay.
Folks, for now, Steve Stack from Studio 3B. Stay tuned, stay up on the socials, and we'll see you soon. For all you folks listening, thanks for talking shop with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to stay up to date with the American Hardwood Advisor Series, give us a like and subscribe. For more tips, projects, and inspiration, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or at bairdbrothers.com. Until next time. Brought to you direct from Studio 3B at Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, the American Hardwood Advisor is your source for trends, tips, and insights into how the building industry has evolved. Join me, Steve Stack, along with guest builders and industry leaders as we talk shop and go in depth on what it takes to be the best of the best. Dive into topics like architecture, industry trends, project plans, historical tools, tricks of the trade, and life's lessons from more than 6 decades of experience in the hardwood lumber business. Hey folks, Steve Stack, Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Back here in Studio B, not our regular orientation behind the studio desk. I'm out front with our friend Amy Shields.
Nice to see you.
Good seeing you again.
Thank you.
It's great that you were able to stop by, and we've got a little bit of an announcement. And that announcement, folks, is we have a new partnership with an organization called Real American Hardwood Coalition.
Right.
And Amy is on the board with Real American, and you are executive director of AHUG.
Right.
So you're a busy lady, and we've been talking about this for a little while.
We have.
And we finally had the opportunity to act on it, and you've been our point guard and running us through it.
Right.
And so we're learning about Real American Hardwood Coalition and their purpose, and it was attractive to Baird Brothers.
Right.
I am crazy excited about the opportunity, not only in sponsoring the movement, but what the 2,100 plus strong brings to the table.
Right.
And the website,
Right. Is realamericanhardwood.com.
right?
Right.
And folks, it's fabulous.
Yeah. It really is.
It's fabulous.
It really is.
And the short form,
Yeah.
tell the folks what is
Real American Hardwood
Real
is.
American Hardwood.
Okay. So Real American Hardwood started back in 2019, the Real American Hardwood Coalition, and this is the U.S. hardwood industry's attempt to create a national marketing campaign to drive hardwood demand for hardwood products in the United States. So if you were to look back at our trajectory, back before 2008, we had a lot of demand for hardwood in our flooring, our cabinets, our millwork, all of those items that are traditionally made out of hardwood. We hit the Great Recession in 2008, and our demand has been cut in half and has kind of stayed steady at that and really hasn't recovered. So we understand that we need to drive demand for hardwood products across our domestic landscape, and that's what Real American Hardwood is all about. We've got a huge battle in front of us in terms of folks choosing substitute products. You know, we've got lumber now that's made out of rice, it's made out of grass, it's made out of hemp, it's made out of plastic, and folks are leaning into those products and have really kind of moved away from choosing solid hardwood in their homes. So that's what this whole campaign is designed to do, is to really drive home why they want to choose hardwood.
And having said that, and some of the other imitations, I'll call them imitations.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it gives us, because you know it's going to come up in conversation when you start having that conversation with people looking at those other products, and they want to play the sustainability ticket.
Right.
And in our industry today, here at Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, and I know a lot of companies that you're affiliated with, from sustainable forest management to sustainable manufacturing processes, and using our natural resource to its utmost, we are as sustainable as they get anymore in the hardwood industry.
We are the greenest building material there is. And so I've been telling a lot of people recently, we just came from the U.S. Green Build International Program in Washington, D.C., and, so plastics and steel and all of our competitor products were there touting how green they are. And actually, for us, we really are the greenest building material. Our sustainability is directly linked to being able to produce those products, to harvest wood from the forest. That's what provides the infrastructure to go right back to the forest floor and do the management that keeps our forests healthy. In the United States, our hardwood forests are generating 2.5 times the amount that we're harvesting. So we are a truly sustainable industry. Our forestry professionals do an amazing job of managing, having young, middle-aged, and older trees on our landscape across our hardwood forests, treating for invasive, non-native invasive plants, but all of that is dependent on being able to sustain the industry. And the way we sustain the industry is we manage the forest, we pull some trees out for harvest, we turn those into long-lived, carbon-storing wood products, and that cycle just repeats itself. It's not only good for the environment, it's good for our forest, and it's good for our own well-being. It's proven that wood products actually inside your home correlate to low stress, reduced blood pressure, that biophilic atmosphere, bringing those natural design elements into your home are super important in sustaining the health inside your home. And honestly, the complete opposite is the case for some of those lookalike products that are made from plastic and resins and really are harmful to your.
So if we realize that a tree in a forest, it has a life cycle, it has a purpose,
right,
and it lives its life, and in storing the carbon, and it comes to the point where it can't store no more, right?
Right.
And
eventually it will die. It'll fall over, and it actually will release its carbon back into the atmosphere. So if we can turn that into a product, that carbon stays stored in that product for the life of the product.
Right. So, Amy, we are super excited about our affiliation with Real American Hardwood Coalition and yourself. And folks, we have more great information like Amy has just put out today. And we're going to be working on some projects, and keep track of us because there is some great, exciting, educational information, usage of hardwoods. We're going to be covering it. Stay tuned. All the social platforms, and a lot of it will take place here at Studio 3, but you don't know where we're going to wind up next. So till next time.
For all you folks listening, thanks for talking shop with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to stay up to date with the American Hardwood Advisor Series, give us a like and subscribe. For more tips, projects, and inspiration, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or at bairdbrothers.com. Until next time,